The contents of this program may not necessarily represent the views of Umar channel.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Shakil Salam and you're watching Umar Channel Sky 820, the health show Hamari, Sehat. Every week we'll bring you a host of people from health profession to talk about various health issues. This is your show and we love to hear from you. Being a new year, a happy new year to all of you. Hope this year bring you happiness, good health, and all the happiness you deserve. Today, I'm really pleased that we have Dr. Ahmed with us. He's a GP in Manchester. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Ji?
I'm very well, thank you.
Happy New Year, Ji.
And to you, thank you.
New Year bring us loads of promises. We want to do things. We want to change. We want to be good. And we want to look after our health. But only last few days or few weeks. Why is that?
Very much so. I think what's always apparent is it seems like we were here only last year, and in fact we were. And we go through this cycle of setting ourselves targets for the coming 12 months, and then we realise it's January again, and nothing has really changed or transpired in any meaningful way. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that we don't tend to plan what we're going to do. We don't tend to plan things that will fit into our busy lifestyles. Most of us, whatever scenario we're in, have multiple requirements on our time, on our energy, and we need to stay motivated, particularly when it comes to, as we always say, health is ultimately wealth, and if we begin with that, everything else tends to slip into place.
Okay, so today we're going to look at healthy lifestyle, and we are looking at some tips. You being a GP in a very, very busy practice in Manchester, at the same time you're very much involved with CCG. Tell me a bit about your role.
Sure. So as you rightly say, I'm a GP in central part of Manchester. In terms of our community, there's lots of patients from our demographic that attend, but also part of the week I work for, as you rightly say, the CCG, which is a clinical commissioning group. These are the people that buy services from the health sector broadly, so people know about hospital care and other services. They're bought on behalf of the people that live in an area by the CCG. So our local hospital, I'm involved in dealing with them on behalf of our area. Okay,
so being a GP, you're familiar with the community and the issues community has. Being a Muslim and coming from South Asian background, what are the key issues we face from day to day in terms of health?
Sure. I think there's been a lot of misinformation for our community, predominantly because a lot of the research, a lot of the guidance that's out there is not catered for our people. And what the difficulty has come about is that we've become a little bit late to the party, in the sense that people are now realising, the health community generally is realising, that we need to approach looking after us very differently. And with anything with regards to health, it begins with us as individuals ourselves. What can we do for ourselves? Naturally, because of our genetic profile, the stuff that makes us the way we are, we're suited to much hotter climates. We're suited to diet that involves us essentially eating things that are not processed, are grown locally and easily accessible. And we're usually very active in the communities of our heritage. In the UK, as we are here, you know, we've become incredibly affluent as a society, and what that's meant is we've sort of gone away from the norm of cooking and having no actually having basic fruit and vegetable. We tend to have everything that's processed, be that meat or anything else. And in terms of our time as well, we spend less time moving around and more time in cars and walking to fridges as opposed to the local grocers.
Okay, so just to remind you, Dr. Fizan Ahmad is with us. He's a local GP. Well, when I say local, it's Manchester-based GP. And this is an opportunity for you to ask any question. Being a GP, he's here to answer any of your questions. But specifically, we are today talking about healthy lifestyle, all the changes we need to make for the new year, for the new beginning. If you would like to ask any question, there's a telephone number on the screen. Please do call us and ask questions or give us your opinion. Have you made a promise? Have you decided to do something different this year to improve your health and well-being? Are you really concerned about your health and health of your family or children? If there's any specific health issues you want to talk about it, this is your opportunity to call us. So, new beginning, what we need to do?
So, the first thing is have a look at what we're doing currently. And actually that's three components. One, what are we eating? So have a look at what you're doing, and the best way of doing that is a food diary. So pick 2 weeks, write down everything you've eaten, take that along to your hopefully friendly GP or the practice nurse that's at that surgery, or if you have access to other health advice within the health centre, then you can
Talking
go and
about
see them.
diaries, you know, some of us probably need a big diary, because if we start writing everything what we eat,
very much so,
it's going
but
to be a big, massive encyclopedia type diary.
it's interesting when we actually write stuff down, or we have it stored in a different way, whether it be on a computer or an app.
Yeah.
It's interesting how we respond to that, because suddenly we're able to quantify it. And what's been interesting over the last year, previously we'd given advice about what's good food and what's bad food, and actually some of it's been turned on its head. So the baddie certainly at the moment, and is being recognised, so is sugar, and those foods that are converted by the body very quickly into sugar are the foods that we really need to start to avoid.
Why are we concerned about sugar? I thought sugar is still, you need sugar as part of your...
Absolutely. So this
diet?
comes back to our human bodies, and we were always designed to take in food but convert it ourselves to the level of sugar we needed. Sugar in its most processed form, the sort of white stuff you can sprinkle on things and put in your tea and so forth, is very much a modern phenomenon. Everything else really was natural sugar. It took time to be digested, and that's why, in essence, sweet fruits will always be better for you than a Kipling cake.
So there's a natural sugar and there is
Processed sugar.
processed sugar. So we need to avoid cakes,
Very
biscuits.
much so. Very much so. So anything that, if in basic terms, anything that's been changed from what it started off life as being, generally is going to lose some of its nutritional content along the way. So the simplest thing being, we're talking about anything like a cake. If you look at its constituent parts, you're talking about flour, you're talking about egg and milk and so forth, and sugar to sweeten. Ultimately, those items individually are good for us. Milk's good for us, eggs are good for us. But actually, when you combine them in a way that's got lower nutritional value, it's sadly going to lose the quality for us.
Really? One of the things for New Year is that a lot of people promise to do something about losing their weight. So they promise that they're going to do something about it. So what will be your advice as a doctor? What is the best way to lose weight? How to become healthy weight and become a better person?
So one of the interesting things that's more prevalent in our community is that we tend not to have a good breakfast. We tend not to have really a lunch, but we do have a decent dinner because we usually sat with the family, the television's on, we're watching yourself, and we then don't do any activity thereafter. And what tends to happen is that because we've starved through the day, the food that we're taking, the body goes into a little bit of a shock mechanism where it says, actually, I might not see this food for another 12 hours. I need to absorb as much as I can. And sadly, that gets converted into fat very quickly. I think that the main thing we can try and do is switch that on its head, in the sense that if we have a decent breakfast, a decent lunch and a light dinner, that's a good start, because we're going to be active through the day naturally. The food's going to obviously be burned up in a more productive way. The other thing we're very good at is depriving ourselves of sleep, and certainly recent evidence has suggested that because of the hours we're doing, whether it be work or other commitments, or we're watching television or whatever it is that's distracting us late into the night, and then we're getting up early and sleeping, actually the current evidence shows that your whole mindset towards food changes as the day goes on. So you end up eating more than you actually need, merely to try and stay awake, because you haven't had the recovery from sleep.
And winter is particularly bad because you can't actively do a lot of things. People tend to stay home, watching TV, eating, and eating this comfort food, and there's nothing else to do. And that is something, in winter we realize people become quite depressed as well, isn't it? It's quite difficult time, isn't it? You become dark very quickly, you can't do a lot of things you want to do, and you ended up staying at home and eating as much as you can.
Absolutely, and that's an ongoing challenge, particularly in a country in the West where we are, where the daylight hours, particularly because we're Northern Hemisphere, the days are much shorter. And I think, again, it comes back to the point I made earlier, which is about planning. And ultimately, if we're planning about what we're going to do in the winter, in the summertime, that allows us to adapt as the year goes round. So there's something about as summer finishes and autumn starts, we're almost preparing actually how are we going to spend December, January and February in terms of our health. And it may just involve simply getting up early when the sun actually does come up, and getting to sleep earlier. But in terms of the time difference between, if our activity changes, then we need to eat less.
Absolutely. Well, one thing you mentioned, and that's very true, because I met a lot of people who proudly say, I didn't have breakfast, I skipped my lunch, and they think they have done a really good justice to their body. But you're saying that is not a good practice at all.
Very much so. And there'll be those people that they will have a go at starting to have breakfast, but we've told them for years, have breakfast cereals, have toast, have this type of thing. But actually, we're now finding that your body converts things like cereals and breads into sugar very, very quickly. And that means you become incredibly hungry even a couple of hours after having such a breakfast. And what we're saying now is move towards, and the nearest thing we have to describe is more of a Mediterranean diet, and that's something that's higher in protein and higher in fruit and vegetables and natural fibres, tends to last longer, and you feel fuller for it. So the old, we're in England as we are, the adage of the English breakfast actually is coming back into fashion. Whilst we might not always have bacon and so forth, we can certainly have halal options to supplement that. but there is something now about going back to that method of having things like meat and protein in a different way as part of a healthy breakfast.
Okay, so we're talking about healthy lifestyle. Dr. Umar is with us. He's a GP in Manchester and kindly here to talk to you about healthy lifestyle. Anything you would like to ask, any question you're concerned about, anything you really wanted to ask, and this is your opportunity to ask to Dr. Umar. Being a GP, a very young GP, mashallah, very actively involved in the community, and today we're going to discuss about various aspects of it: healthy food, exercise, what is best for us, what we can do to improve our health and well-being for next 12 months. Not only next 12 months, for the rest of our life. And what is best thing to do? We talk about food, we talk about diet, we're talking about some of the concern and also raising awareness in the community. So please, if you would like to ask any questions, there is a number on the screen. Please do call us and give your opinion. What do you think? Have you decided to change anything for this year? Are you thinking about perhaps your weight, perhaps giving up something? I mean, I've seen a few friends who decided not to have any fizzy drinks or sugar, or perhaps doing more exercise than they used to do, give up certain things, not having more takeaways anymore and having homemade food more often. These sort of things, having more fruits, they're good for you. Have you made any wishes what you want to do? Whatever you're going to do is going to have impact on your family, your health. So please make some changes. Changes are really important, but sometimes people make massive changes. They want to go to gym every day and after a few days they can't cope anymore. They wanted to give up something they've been probably having all their life, and all of a sudden they probably gave up for a couple of days and then they realize they can't manage it. So what is the best advice if you want to change? The small changes are better for you, or a big massive change can make a huge difference?
As human beings, we are always resistant to any form of change, whether it be small scale or large scale. And it's interesting you give the example of joining the gym. It's the running joke that there's a spike in membership applications in January, and really by middle of February, early March, most people have either failed to attend or they've given up. And a lot of this is about ultimately, one, it not fitting in with what they're doing, and the motivation, the adrenaline goes. Where gyms are helpful is that most of them now have personal trainers, they have people of expertise who can take advice from, who can give you an assessment and say, actually, this is what's going to be right for you to have a go at. And the best personal health trainers will give you stuff that you can actually do at home. You can do at home without any equipment, and that's the best advice. With any sort of change, ultimately it's about making those small steps but giving yourself some targets. So it's about keeping a bit of a plan together. Have an aim. What's your aim going to be for this month? What are you planning to do for February? What are you planning to do with March and thereafter? And they've got to be realistic. When it comes to generally weight loss, you can have quite immense gains in the first few months, and then it plateaus, and that tends to demotivate people. What we're talking about ultimately is, as you introduced the program, this is about lifestyle. This is about everything. Don't do this on your own. Do it as a family. Do it as a partnership. Do it as a couple. Do it with your kids. This is don't do it on your own, and do it as something that you look at absolutely everything. How are you spending your money on food? Where are you going to eat? What are you actually cooking? other things that we've not really touched upon, the impact on health that we know of, you know, things like smoking and shisha, smoking. Other people have different vices, those of us that succumb to alcohol or various other recreational drugs. All these things have an impact on how we are. And sugar and salt and all these various things are almost put in the same bracket. Increasingly our communities, we now have more chicken shops than we have mosques that we used to sort of have a running joke about. But ultimately, it's market forces. If we didn't want to have this type of food, these places wouldn't open. And it's clearly driven by us wanting to have that. What's interesting is particularly any sort of takeaway food, lots of studies have been done. Actually, if you buy the ingredients and you have a go at cooking it, it will be cheaper and quicker than you actually think. But we're just not prepared to do that. But actually, if we do it wholesale, we actually look at it as a whole family, as a whole community, change the way we actually do things, where it becomes normal to not sit around the television and have food, but actually sit around the table and have food as a family can be a very big thing.
Social media is a huge thing now. Do you think that has impact on our health and well-being?
Absolutely. We've become an incredibly sedentary people, but we've lost anything that sort of brings us together. Certainly within our community, it tends to be weddings and funerals. But where social media can be a positive thing is there are various applications that you can find if people are running locally, or if there are women's walk groups, whatever it is. There are, you know, use technology for personal gain, as opposed to it being more about what's the latest gossip and so forth. There are lots of opportunities there. It's just that we've been a little bit late to the party in terms of using it for our own benefit and allowing it to flow.
Absolutely. Just to remind people, this is the health show Hamari Sehat. We have Dr. Umar with us. He is a local GP based in Manchester, and today we're talking about a new year, our new promises, the new targets we're going to set to improve our health and well-being. This is important for us, for our family, for our community. Being a Muslim, being from a South Asian background, we have more common in terms of diabetes is more common in our community, heart condition, stroke, you name it. Why is that, and how we can improve our health and well-being? What is the key tips we need to understand to lose weight, have a healthy weight, have improved health and well-being, able to do things and feel better. And it's really important to be happy, be healthy, and be active. And this is what the program is all about, because we get really excited when it's the new year, new beginning, and this is the time perhaps we need to reflect on our own health. And that's one of the reasons we are here to talk to Dr. Umar. If you've got any questions, any concern, anything you would like to ask a question, being a GP, one of the good things is that it's like a practice, little surgery for you. If you have any question relating to your family, yourself, please do call us. There's a number on the screen. Give us a call, and inshallah we'll be able to answer your questions or your concern. So when we talk about being healthy, I mentioned, that in our community, when we talk about diabetes, numbers are going up and up. When we talk about heart condition, when we talk about kidney failures, you name it, I think we are probably top of the list with everything. Is that because of the diet and because of our lifestyle? Do you think that's one of the reasons?
Certainly one of the things we've recognised for a number of years is that, one, diagnosing diabetes didn't seem to acknowledge the differences that our community brings. So, for example, we've always talked about body mass index, BMI.
Yeah.
It was thought that anything, if you scored between 20 and 25, you were fine. But actually within our community, anything over 23 starts to get a bit risky. Increasingly, when we look at our diet, we've always been a community where we've had much more carbohydrate than other elements of food. So whether that be rice, roti, generally our mindset has been about the portion control hasn't been quite right when it comes to carbohydrates. Salads and generally fruits and vegetables, apart from famous mango and various fruits that are popular within our community groups, we tend not to take full advantage of those. And when it comes to sort of meat, it tends to be the lower quality, high fat meat that we've tended to consume. We've not gone for, fish in general, particularly oily fish, which is much better for us. The leaner meat, because it tends to be more expensive. And also when we've had poultry, that being chicken and so forth, we've tended to have it with skin and cooked to the hilt, so it's lost most of its nutritional content. So there's lots of things that we've almost put ourselves in this mess. Quite often in the surgery, when I see children coming in, what's really disappointing is rather than the children having a water bottle, they've got a carton of mango juice. And if we turn around the carton, actually look at the content, the sugar content's higher than the water content, which beggars belief, given that it's a liquid when it's in the carton.
Absolutely. So we certainly carry on talking about various aspects of healthy lifestyle. Dr. Faizan Ahmad is with us. We're going to go for a short break, and inshallah we'll see you after the break with your question, with your queries, and also looking at various aspects of our healthy lifestyle and some key tips. Don't go away. Keep watching Umar channel, Hamari Sehat, and we'll see you in a minute. Assalamu alaikum.
The contents of this program may not necessarily represent the views of Umar channel.